Hi, everybody. It's time for our political energy reading from the swamp for Thursday, July 10th, 2025. Lots more stuff happening today. Let me tell you, it seems to be never ending. So let's see what we got here, shall we? So, starting out with, we're looking at the present, what's going on right now. And for that, we drew a hanging man. Uh, And this is the hanging man symbolizes a time of inaction, calmly waiting, um, knowing when and what to sacrifice. I'd never quite heard that definition before for the hanging man, but I think in today's climate, it actually makes a lot of sense. Knowing when and what to sacrifice. Right now, there are a lot of people having to make a lot of sacrifices, or they're having to make decisions about, well, do I sacrifice this or do I sacrifice that? What what is it that I can live without the easiest when none of the choices are easy? So that's kind of where we're starting. That's in the present. That's kind of what's going on right now. Um, and then we go to the past. Now, the past is a Hierophant. So here we're talking about following tradition, following faith, um, respecting the achievements of the generations that came before us, um, acting on our own spiritual beliefs that come to us usually down through our families. Some people discover a spiritual walk regardless of their families. Some folks walk away from it altogether and, like, yeah, I don't have time for that anymore. So um, there's a really big mix, I think, of that very thing. But the Hierophant kind of symbolizes that feeling of following in tradition, following religious ways of being, how we worship, where we worship, if we worship. Um, and that could be with a church, with a mosque, with a coven, with a temple. It just depends on where your personal belief systems are at. Now, the biggest hangup we've got right now, currently, uh, is in the past. Everyone had the assurance that they could practice their faith their way. As long as they didn't hurt anybody else, it didn't matter. Because we don't have state sanctioned religion or state sanctioned belief systems. It's one of the things our founding fathers were really, really clear about, is to keep state and church completely separate, with the biggest, thickest brick wall they could put between the two. They didn't want them intermingling. Now we have leadership that are trying their damnedest to mix the two together so that they can then say everyone must believe this way, or everyone must worship this way, everyone must pray this way. And that's not who we are as Americans. Part of the joy of being an American is we can worship and have faith and pray in whatever way that suits our needs, whatever way that we want to believe in. There's no one right way or wrong way. Now, granted, there are religions that are going to tell you that if you don't do it their way, it's wrong, blah, blah, blah. And if that's what you believe, that's cool. Okay, no big deal. Um, but the beauty of our country was that our founding fathers set it up and wrote the Constitution in such a way that they put those two items as far apart from one another as they possibly could. No intermingling, no mixing it up. religion and, church and politics and government leadership, two separate animals, and never the two shall meet. And that's the way they looked at it. And that's something we've got to get back to. And then when we look at our immediate future, what's going to happen, say, within the next few days, few weeks, few months, few years? When you're talking about immediate future, there's no real set date with that. And I've never really been one that can pick up on dates, like when is something going to happen. I'll get things like I'll see a season around something, like Christmas time. I'll see Christmas decorations and cold weather, or summertime. I'll see people at the beach, that kind of thing. So I guess in that way you learn to read time, but it doesn't tell you it's going to be 2:30 tomorrow afternoon. No, it doesn't work like that. So with the immediate future, we're looking at the Ace of Swords. Now, the Ace of Swords is the gift of truth that lets you see the world clearly. I like the way they phrased that with this deck. By the way, this is the Gilded Tarot Royale. I really like this deck. The cards are beautiful. But that's the way they listed this particular card was, the way they have it with this deck is the gift of truth that lets you see the world clearly, communicate well, and create a happy, healthy reality. So that's something that there's that little kernel of hope right there that we can look forward to, that we can work towards, is knowing that when we follow the truth, as difficult as it may be, that helps us see things clearly, that helps us communicate with one another easier, and we understand one another easier. It helps to create happy homes, happy people, happy family. When you live in the truth, you no longer have to worry about, can I remember what lie I told to this person so that I repeat the right one? That's why the truth is so important. You just say what it is and you leave it at that. And people have to deal with that truth in whatever means that they're capable of. From there, we go to the distant past, which is what is it? The five of swords. Yeah, we have quite a few swords here. So now the Five of Swords, we're talking about a victory that comes at great cost, a tough battle that must be faced. This is where we came from in our past, how we got started as a country. It began with a tough battle. People had choices to make. Do we remain members of the British Isles, under the auspices of King George, or do we step out and fight for our freedoms and be our own country? Now, our founding fathers were not sacrosanct. They were not perfect. Most of them were wealthy, land-owning, slave-owning gentlemen, but they wanted freedom for everybody. Now, back then, the way they kind of wrote the Constitution, the way they tried to set up the country was not in the best of situations for all people concerned. I mean, women had no rights. Uh, they still had slaves. They had no rights. Um, the indigenous people had no rights, and so on and so on. So but they also wrote our Constitution in such a way that it allows us to amend, adapt, change as the times change. They wanted it to be a living document, one that can change with the times, a document that can rule us, that's not set in stone 16th, 17th century law, because they knew things would change, people would change, society would change. They were not stupid men, okay? They were fairly damn smart. And so they tried to write it in such a way that it gave room for amendments to be made, for changes to be made, for what would be the best for our society today. And so, even though we fought that fierce battle back 200 and something years ago, there's a real good chance we're getting ready to fight it again because of just all the crap that's going on. I mean, let's just be blunt. It's just a big pile of smelly, steamy, stinky BS. Sorry, that's kind of a TMI, I guess. I don't know. Anyway, it's not just the distant past that we have these battles to fight, because they have followed us into the present, and they will more than likely follow us into the future. We seem to just be the kind of people, from human beings, that just like to fight. We like to try to take things away from each other instead of just sharing everything, when there's more than enough for everybody to have a seat at the table. But yet we have to fight about it. And then, of course, we go into the distant future, and that is the Five of Pentacles. That's talking about needing assistance, needing help with resources, with money, dealing with either ourselves or someone we know who's in physical pain or mental anguish, or just needing things that they can no longer provide for themselves. It's also talking about, with the Five of Pentacles, reaching out for assistance when we need it. Right now, the way the current administration is treating its own people is to take away as much assistance as they can as quickly as they can, because cruelty is the point. The more people they can hurt and the faster they can hurt them, the happier they are. I don't understand that. I think most people don't understand that. It's like, why would you purposefully want to hurt others? What's the point in that? I don't understand it. I don't pretend to. I just know that it's a truly sad situation that we currently have an administration that lied through its teeth, stating that it was never going to do this, or it was never going to do that, or it was going to take care of us. And what is happening? The exact opposite. That's what's happening. So we have to learn how to find the support we need. Systems that were set up generations ago to help those less fortunate than us, those who are disabled, those who are mentally challenged, those who just cannot do for themselves. While charity systems work, and most people, they go out of their way to give to food banks or to give to churches or other organizations that help people in need. The government, because part of the job of the government is to take care of its people. That's just in the basic definition of the word. And the current administration doesn't want to take care of anybody anymore. They're like, yeah, you're disabled, you're hooked up to a machine, you can't breathe on your own or pee on your own or eat on your own, but you're going to have to get up and go get a job. Where does that make sense? You know, or wanting to cut off a 3-month-old who's in intensive care because of whatever condition or disease that child was born with. But yet, no, we need, it's just a lazy kid not wanting to get up, earn their keep. Well, you tell me how a 3-month-old is going to get up and have a job. Hell, how a 3-year-old is going to do that. They're talking about wanting to make people who get assistance through like Medicaid or whatnot go back to work. The vast majority of people that are on these systems that receive this kind of help are either children who can't take care of themselves, are senior citizens who no longer can take care of themselves, and those who have just had a run of bad luck and need a little help to get back on their feet again. And then you have those who are disabled, who got hurt for whatever reason. They hurt on their job or in an accident or born with some kind of a deformity or some kind of an ailment that prevents them from being able to get up and go to work every day like everybody else does. These are the people that get helped. This is what our tax money pays for. We pay taxes as American citizens. We pay taxes to fund these programs, to help feed those who are hungry, to help shelter those who have no homes, to help clothe those who can't afford to go out and buy a pair of pants and a shirt to wear or a pair of shoes. We provide medical care, or some semblance of medical care anyway, for those that need that help because they can't do it on their own for whatever reason. Are there those who abuse the system? Yeah, you're going to get that no matter what kind of system you build. There's always going to be those that are going to try to game the system. It's just part of human nature. But you don't cut off your nose to spite your face. You don't penalize everyone because 2 people out of 1,000,000 break the rules. That makes no sense. So part of what we need to do at this stage is to start shoring up these programs. Once we get the current administration out of office and away from the levers of government work, we have a lot of work to do to rebuild these organizations, these programs, to help those who are in need. And there are going to be more people in the distant future that are going to need help than what we have right now. It's like the right hand doesn't know what the left hand is doing. I know I'm coming up with a lot of really silly sayings, but that's just the way my brain works some days. So we have a lot of people that are with the current administration. They're cutting people off of their medical health care and then telling them, well, you got to get up, go take a job. Well, how are they going to do that when they're not able to get up and physically do that? Or mentally, they aren't capable of doing that. Or other diseases that they may have, cancer, lung disease. God, the list is endless that prevents them from getting up and working. I mean, you point out to me some 70, 80, 90-year-old person who can go work in the fields for 8, 10, 12 hours a day to earn their keep. Now, these are people who have worked most of their lives. They've paid their taxes, they've paid into the system, and now they rightfully feel they should get the benefits that are owed them. Except that now you have a government that's saying, "Oh, well, you're being a moocher, you're being a leech." It's like, no, it's my money. I paid it in good faith that it was going to be there to take care of me when I hit retirement age. And now they want to take that away. They want to take everything away from those who have nothing or less than nothing and give it to those who have more than they'll ever begin to use up. You know, the fact that our government is willing to sacrifice tens of millions of people in this country, hundreds of millions of people in this country, for 83 billionaires. I mean, think about that. 83 people are considered more important than the millions of people that live in this country, or the millions, billions of people that live around the world that received aid from us, received help from us, because we were able to do so. Because of that, it created bonds. It created working relationships with other countries that are now being destroyed. Y'all, I don't know if you realize this or not, but it's going to take us generations to repair the damage that's been done just in the first 6 months of this man's presidency. And it's going to take, probably not within our lifetimes will we see the damage repaired. But once we get them out of office, we got a lot of work to do. I mean, people are going to, need to get ready, roll up their sleeves and get to work. It's in whatever way, shape, or form that you can. Because we're going to have a lot of damage control that we're going to have to face, a lot of mending of very important relationships with other countries that are being destroyed right in front of our face. It truly is sad to see how far down this administration has drugged this country. I never thought anybody would ever have the power to drag down our country to the level that this administration has just within 6 months. God help us after 4 years. It's not going to be a place none of us recognize anymore. We have to fight back. We have to stand our ground. We have to stand up to them and say, no, this is not right, and we're not going to give in to you for it. So start getting your ducks in order. Like I've told y'all before, man, start stashing money at home, hard, cold cash, because there's going to come a day when they're going to cut off the ATMs and the bank accounts and the 401ks and whatever else you got going and tell you, yeah, no, we're taking that money. You don't need it. We're going to use it. And who's going to get to use it? Those 83 billionaires that, poor babies, they're just so destitute without all of our stuff on top of all of their stuff, right? All right, I'm being a smart ass, y'all. Forgive me. Let me take a sip. So that's just the general spread for the energy reading. It comes across to me that very clearly what Spirit is trying to say to us. Get your shit together, people. We got a lot of work to do. And we cannot continue to stand by and let them continue to destroy our country. And we're going to have to stand up and fight for it, y'all. That's all there is to it. Okay, and I drew a couple of prediction cards just to see what comes up and what I got for that. And with that, I pulled, first I pulled, if I can get it to scroll, okay. Holding power. I like the fact that it's a little boy standing there. So holding power, what is that? That's dominance. That's control, authority, influence, a stronghold. This is what this administration and their followers are so desperate to hang on to, is this power. And they're willing to do anything. They're willing to sell their soul to the devil just so they can hang on to power. And everything they do that they think makes them look like big, tough men, actually, it's the opposite. It makes them look weak. It makes all of us look weak. And people stand around and like, do something about it. Well, who are you telling to do something about it? That's our job as American citizens, is to stand up and say, no, this BS has got to go. So just start being prepared for possible outcomes of what could happen that aren't going to be very pleasant. And then the other card I drew was drone strike. Well, other than the obvious drone that's going to strike something or someone, we're talking about remote power. The thing about drones is it removes the horror of wars and what they cause. It talks about remote power, surveillance, tactical impact. It's it paints a really dark picture. Yes, I realize that. However, we need to be prepared to help those around us. Y'all have heard me harp on this over and over and over again, but it's very true. We have got to shut off help to these 83 billionaires who can afford the finest AC system in the world in here. So we're looking at using remote power, surveillance. It's something that Secretary Puppy Killer is currently trying to work on, is creating one database with all of our information so that they can track you and trace you and know every step you take. Don't make it easy on them, y'all. We got to fight back on that. So altogether, what I'm feeling like Spirit's trying to say is be calm, or seek calm, I should say. Figure out what it is we need to sacrifice in order to survive. It doesn't mean it's going to be forever. It may just be for a couple of weeks or a couple of months. God forbid, a couple of years. You know, as we fight back, as we prepare to hold our government accountable, we have to remember that that is going to come at a great cost to all of us. The cost of war in and of itself, cost of families being ripped apart, um, and of course, with that drone strike, like I said, that leads to the holding power, which is them desperately trying to hang on to power. Um, I hate to, I hate to burst their bubble, but the opposing party is going to pick up a hell of a lot of seats in the House and in the Senate, which is basically going to neuter anything that Donald can do. Looking at my notes, y'all. Um, okay. I really feel like what Spirit's trying to tell us here is we got to hang on. We got to be willing to fight for what we want. I think that's one of the biggest messages I'm getting off of this is we got to be willing to roll up our sleeves and go to work, do what needs to be done to start repairing the damage. But before we get to that stage, we got to be willing to fight to get our freedoms back. I mean, I'm sitting here today in July in the year 2025 with less rights than I had when I was 10. Make that make sense. You can't. There is no making sense of that. So I'm trying hard to find some kernel of hope in here. It's not coming, y'all. I guess the only one that really stands out to me as far as that kernel of hope is the Ace of Swords. And that's the gift of truth, of honesty. And that's where we have to go with this. We've got to start holding them accountable for when they do really stupid things. And we have to be willing to face the consequences of those actions. You know, that's going to make it that much harder. All right, that's about it. They're not really telling me much of anything else. See, I haven't done this in so long. I'm literally like trying to wrap my brain out of going back into a different direction. Y'all have a great evening. Have a great day. It will get better. It will. Not going to happen by tomorrow or Friday, but it will get better. We just have to hang in there and be ready to fight, push back, rebuild, whatever it takes to fix this. All right, y'all have a great day. I'm going to stop now. They finally quit talking to me, so y'all have a good one. Look for those little kernels of hope. I know they're there. I just can't find them. You may take one look at it and go, oh, I know exactly what you're talking about. This is how we fix it. And that's what we need. Y'all to put on your thinking caps and think us out of this box so that we can be better. All right. Bye for now. We'll talk soon.